Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Billie Jean Shaw, where we're starting the day off with big breaking news in the entertainment world. The verdict is in. One-time global hip-hop mogul Shawn Diddy Combs, accused of sexual abuse against women and forced drug activity, was acquitted this morning on racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, but found guilty of the lesser charges. The jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, which carries 10 years each, 2 charges of that, and not guilty on 1 count of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. His bond hearing is set for 5 p.m. today. Here to help us break all of this down is attorney Tyler Bailey from the Bailey Law Firm. Tyler, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course.
Yes, when you look at the overall take of the trial, what do you think went right? What went wrong?
Yeah, well, first, these charges that Mr. Combs was accused of committing were egregious. Most people saw the video with Miss Ventura in the hotel where Mr. Combs is seen dragging her across the floor. And he had several charges, the big one being the racketeering charge, which had a penalty of life in prison, and the sex trafficking charges. So I think...
Is that the same as a RICO?
Yes, RICO.
Okay.
Yeah, racketeering, RICO, same thing.
Okay.
And I think that this case was a huge case. He could have went to jail for life. He was still convicted of 2 of the charges, which do have penalties of 10 years each. But overall, it was a win for the defense. And I think that the prosecution, they tried to get conviction, but they fell short.
And that was my next question. Would you consider this a defense win, even though he is still facing that max of up to 20 years? Yeah,
he's facing a max up to 20 years. Each charge has a penalty of 10 years. The likelihood of him doing 10 years consecutively for both charges is slim. And so more than likely, if he is going to do time, it'll be, let's say, for example, 5 years on one charge and 2 years on the other, and he can run those concurrently, meaning that he's serving both sentences at the same time, rather than consecutively, where you do 5 then 2. And so I think it was a defense win. Anytime somebody could go to jail for life and then they have the possibility of actually walking out of jail today and maybe not doing any prison time is a win for the defense and a loss for prosecution.
And Combs has sat in jail for over a year. Would that help when it comes to crediting time for sentencing if he should have to serve any time?
Yeah, he'll definitely get credit for time served. There's sentencing guidelines in federal court, so the judge will consider those things. And I believe he does have a bond hearing scheduled for later on today, so there's a chance that he can get bond pending his sentencing, but he'll get credit for his time served.
Wow. And so some experts are weighing in and saying that the defense actually took a risk by not calling Diddy to the stand during the trial. Why are people saying that? Should he have been called to the stand? But obviously in this case, it worked out.
If you poll 10 defense lawyers, I think all but maybe 1 would say that Diddy should have been called to the stand. I think that him testifying would have done nothing but hurt the case. He was presumed innocent to proven guilty. I think the defense lawyers here did a good job putting the burden of proof on the prosecution to show that beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Combs was guilty of the charge that he was accused of. So I think they actually were strategic in not calling Mr. Combs to the stand, because if he did go to the stand, I'm pretty sure things could have went the other way.
Because it's a situation where the prosecution has to prove that he's guilty, not necessarily the defense proving his innocence?
That's absolutely correct, and guilty of the charges that he was accused of committing: racketeering, sex trafficking, and also transportation for purposes of prostitution, the Mann Act charges, not domestic violence. So there was different charges that he was accused of committing, and the burden of proof was on the prosecution to show that he was guilty of those charges. And I think the defense said, hey, Mr. Combs, what he did was egregious, but he's not guilty of what the prosecution's saying that he's guilty of.
The bond hearing is set for 5 o'clock today. What will a judge have to consider when it comes to the possibility of releasing Diddy?
The biggest concern is going to be if he's a flight risk, if he's going to use his resources to evade responsibility in serving or a penalty or receiving the justice that the judge is going to state. Also, if he's a danger to society. I think that here he's been in jail for a long time. If he was charged with these 2 charges that he was convicted of only, I think he would have received a bond. So I think there's a chance he could get a bond. He'll have to post a high bond, likely over $1 million. And the judge is going to be considering all those things. The government wants him to sit in jail until sentencing. His defense wants him out so he can be home, probably at home confinement until he's sentenced. And the judge has a hard decision to make this afternoon.
And you know, Cassie Ventura has also released a statement through her attorney. She's also asking that the judge keep Diddy in jail until sentencing. She said, quote, by coming forward with her experience, this is from her attorney rather, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. We must repeat with no reservation that we believe and support our client, who showed exemplary courage throughout this trial. She displayed unquestionable strength and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion. What does this mean, though, for the victims that testified and some of the things that they've gone through? Would they face any criminal lawsuits or anything against them possibly?
I don't think so. I think they were very courageous in testifying, cooperating with the government. And I think people are forgetting that Mr. Combs was still convicted of 2 charges, and there is a possibility that he could do a decade in prison or more. And so it is somewhat of a win for the defense that he's not going to do life in jail or have a penalty of 40 years or something of that nature. But the victims, they did a courageous job in testifying. Ms. Ventura, she testified under her name. There was no pseudonym that she used.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any repercussion of being sued for anything. But unfortunately, you know, in today's times with social media, there'll be trolls who will say all types of things about the woman who testified against Diddy here. And I think that's the biggest backlash. And hopefully they still do feel empowered that they did the right thing in testifying. The government, they had to prove the case, and unfortunately they lost on some of the charges. And at the end of the day, the jury is who made the decision, and we have to respect it.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler Bailey from Bailey Law Firm, for coming in. We really appreciate it. One more last question for you, just overall. I mean, how should Diddy have to move going forward? You know, it seems like he will have to be super careful with his everyday activities if he should ever be able to be released as we are waiting on his sentencing.
Yeah, I think he should no longer engage in those activities that he was doing that led to him being charged. I think his reputation has taken somewhat of a hit based off the video with Ms. Ventura and also the testimony that came out in this trial. And so hopefully he comes out a better person, has learned from his actions, and that the victim still feels some sort of justice, because I don't think he's going to walk away with just a slap on the wrist. I do think he'll do some jail time for his actions.
All right. Well, thank you for weighing in. Your expertise was very helpful today in making sure that everyone is understanding the big national news that Shawn Combs' trial is over. A verdict has been reached. We'll pull up that information for you once more. Diddy found guilty on prostitution charges, not violent charges, but not guilty on the biggest charges where he could face life in prison, which was racketeering. You may have also heard the term the RICO charges as well. We'll be right back.